Guess what we did last week?
I don't know.
Booked tickets to Stockholm for the World Championships and the coaching symposium.
Nice.
So when people come to visit you, what are like the top 2 or 3 things you have to do in Stockholm from a tourist perspective?
Walking around in Stockholm is nice. I think, especially in May. In May, it's awesome. It can be so beautiful because it's so much water, and you get the old city, and it's very beautiful to just walk around. But I have some restaurants for you for sure.
Okay, amazing. Is the Globe Arena, is that the main, whether I'm watching a hockey game or a concert in Stockholm, is that the main venue?
No, we have some bigger ones, soccer arenas, where they take like 50,000 people. So when we have big concerts and stuff, they're at those arenas. But this is the biggest hockey rink we have, and I think it's 14,000 or something.
Who plays in there? Do one of the pro teams play out
Actually, right now we only have like 5 games a year in that arena when it comes to clubs.
Yeah.
But the national team always plays there. But the AIK, you go to the Stockholm team, they play next door at the smaller rink. They take like 8,000, I think, and that's a really old arena. But it's nice.
Man. I can't wait. Well, speaking of arenas, how many ice times did you have today?
6 sessions.
All at the same rink?
No, 2 different rinks.
And is that a typical weekday for you?
No, like 3, maybe 4 days a week. It's like this, and the rest of the days I have 1 or 2 sessions, maybe.
Got it. So when you wake up, today's a Monday. When you woke up this morning on a Monday morning, how do you organize? And I don't know if these are private lessons, team lessons, small groups. How do you organize everything in your head to ensure that when you show up in front of the players, you got a game plan?
I have my notebook. It's like a black book. People talk about that book. But I have
That's a valuable book, Daniel.
Yeah, but no one will understand anything if they look at it. So, but I have to be organized mainly because I want to remember what I did last time and continue from there. And maybe I'm having like 15 to 20 different practices between the last time. So if I end up with the same group, I want to know what I did last time. So.
That's interesting. I was thinking about you this morning. So I really enjoy doing yoga, and I've probably mentioned this a few times on the show that I think that every hockey coach should go do a yoga class, because a good yoga instructor is communicating with you when you're not looking at them, and they're using language to give you really clear instruction on what to do physically with your body. And these little teeny tiny adjustments make a world of difference if communicated properly. So this morning, my teacher, Kristen, who's my favorite teacher, she made a comment that because I guess she gets asked a lot, and she said, when I show up here, I've got a general outline, but I don't have a specific plan because I'm watching the room, I'm reading the room to say, this is what's needed next. And she said, sometimes I think we're going to do a pose, but then I'm like, maybe we're coming off a long weekend, and maybe the group's not ready to do that level of a pose. So my question would be, what's more valuable, having kind of a drill to drill progression or plan for the lesson, or just knowing what you did last time and combining, I know what I did last time, but then I've got enough experience that I can be agile within the lesson to sort of react to what the player or group of players needs?
Yeah, it's 100% the last thing you said, because I have a plan. I have an idea what I want to work on, and I know what we did last time, and then I build from there. So I have some drills I know I want to work with, but I adjust to what's going to happen. Like tonight, I had 3 sessions with a club, and I didn't know the number, how many players was going to be on the ice. And the first session, we had like 14 guys, and I was like, okay. Next practice, we were 29. I really had to
Wow.
adjust to.
Just you on the ice at 29?
Yeah, I had one
A
guy
lot.
helping me out, but
Yeah.
so I never know what to expect. So I have to be able to switch quickly and adjust.
You know
But I
what?
have the plan. The plan can be inside edge, or the plan can
Yeah.
be like fakes or whatever, and then I build from there.
I think one of the most valuable lessons that any coach can go through, and at least I know this was the case for me. So years ago, I had the opportunity to go to China to run a hockey school, and 2 1 weeks hockey schools turned into over a 6 year period. I think I did like 24 trips overseas, and generally, like you're kind of communicating on it's called WeChat, but I would be like, hey, like how many kids in the lesson, how many coaches? So I'd get this general framework before I jumped on a plane. And they might say, oh, you're going to have like 16 kids between the ages of 6 to 8. And I'd be like, perfect. I do my plan. I'd show up, and this would happen pretty much all the time. I would show up on the ice, and there would be 47 kids between the ages of 6 and say 16. And then there's the language barrier. You can't communicate. And that dropped into that environment and having to figure it out, like to me, that is the deep end of coaching, but that's when you kind of get good, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and I would say I perform the best when I end up in those situations. I have a plan, but something else happens. I have to start working here. I have to really dig into this, and I think I perform the best when I end up in those situations.
Totally. So no plan with a plan. When you leave the rink, what are the ingredients that goes into a practice or lesson that makes you feel like, just as a coach, satisfies that you did good work?
That's a good question. I can see it in the eyes of the players. If I see their interest, if I see their presence, if I get questions from them. I had the last group I had tonight was a group like that. I think I had 25 to 30 questions during the practice. All the players came up. Do you think I can do it like this? If I use the inside edge there instead of my, and I was like, I just love this.
How old were these kids?
They were born 10 and 11, so 14, 15.
Got it. Is
Yeah.
so could you argue that maybe questions are sort of the scoreboard for coaches in the development
Yeah,
business?
if they're coming from inside, some kids come up with questions because the parents tell them to
Sure.
to the coach with the questions. But
Yeah.
I can see it in the eyes if they're genuine or interested in, I want to know more about this. Then I feel, wow, this is a good situation.
Just, in getting ready for this conversation, I was doing some Googling, and I mean, gosh, there's just, any whether you're in the coaches side business or in the DB hockey factory business, there's just too many places to put content. I feel like it should just go on the coaches site, by the way. But I came across Threads and your post there, and I absolutely, as somebody that spends a lot of time on the internet looking at coaching content, I can't remember like diving in to some insights that you shared on Threads, and specifically around, I think players embracing things being hard, and
Yeah.
why that's important. Can you elaborate? If you were having a conversation perhaps with a player to say, "Hey, adversity is good, hard is good," what sort of feedback are you giving them?
I'm trying to explain what to expect around the corner. If they're aiming for becoming a professional or elite player, this is something you have to deal with almost every day. I had a discussion earlier today with some ladies, some girls players. They had an issue in the team and they blamed each other and everything, and they blamed the coach. And I told them, I mean, this is the business. You're going to feel different. You're going to think different about so many different kind of things, but you have to find your way through it and to like blend together and find a common way to go as a team. And the same thing last week, I had a player I've been working with since he was 6 years old. And now for the first time, he's struggling in his team. He's playing on fourth line, and the dad is really upset, and it's not supposed to be like this. The coach don't like him, and I was like, this is perfect for him. He needs this because he's had a smooth ride so far. But if he want to become a professional, he need that struggle because everyone ends up in tough situations.
How much of your role in a player's journey could be perhaps related to a bartender or barber and somebody where you just, there's the stuff you teach them on the ice, but there's just, having a neutral person that they can just come to and
Yeah,
voice their frustration. And I think we all need
yeah.
that in certain
Yeah,
aspects
for
of,
sure.
yeah.
And I
Yeah,
think that's a big part of the job I have today. But at the same time, I want to be truthful to them. I don't want to just scratch their back because many times that's what they want to hear. They want to hear me say, "Oh, the coach sounds really stupid" or whatever.
totally.
Uh, so I want to be frank to them and give them my experience. And I think, I mean, working with Jon Odoya or Jesper Bratten, the top guys, I mean, they had long times of really hard struggle, and that's what made them come to the place they came. They had the tools to handle all the adversity.
How many times, I mean, I guess maybe how valuable is it, just given the amount of time you've been doing this for, to be able to talk to an aspiring younger player, maybe in their teenage years, to say, hey, I can remember when Jesper Bratt was your age and I was working with them and this is what they went through, and just having that opportunity to reshare some of those stories and relate them to other players.
Yeah, I think role models are very, very important for all of us, especially for younger kids, because they know Jesper's situation today. And if they know that he struggled when he was 14, 15, 16 years old, of course, that's a very good thing to lean against. Because I see so many young players they don't have the tools to handle adversity because the parents take care of everything. As soon as something gets tough, they step in and they take care of it because they don't want their kids to become sorry or frustrated or left aside or whatever. But that's a part of the game, and you need to learn how to handle it, I think.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I found myself like just stepping away from, I guess, coaching a team. I coach a group of 6-year-olds now with my little guy, but I think just by nature of what I do 9 to 5, I get so many parents reaching out, and to your point, like they want to hear that validation that it's the coach's fault or that it's this somebody's fault. Like it's certainly not the player's fault. And I just find myself all the time saying, like, look, like, one, I'm not there, so I can't comment, but I can guarantee you, like, coaches, um, they're paying their mortgage and putting food on their family's table through coaching. So whatever decisions they're making, they're not doing it because they've got a grudge or they don't like your kid.
No,
They're making
no,
decisions to win hockey games, right or
no,
wrong. But you gotta always trust in that. And
no.
I think it's, and I partly say that because I think so many coaches in your position, the easy thing to do is to validate or agree with the parent because maybe they sign up for another group or
Yeah,
lesson or
sure.
whatever. There's
Yeah,
that
sure.
carrot, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm usually telling younger kids, if you're 14, 15 years old, you're going to have 20 more coaches in your career. If you play until you're 37, 38, you're going to have 20 coaches. Five of them will be super good. You're going to love them. 10 will be, no, they're fine. And five will be completely idiots. But you have to learn how to play under all these kind of different coaches because otherwise it's only you that's going to pay the price. Even under the idiots, you need to find your way to play under them. Otherwise, you're going to be the only one suffering.
You know what? That's such a good point. You know what's funny about that is, it comes up more and more, like especially with the professional coaches that we work with, they talk about managing up, that a big part of their job now is it's managing their GM or it's managing their owner. And as you say it, I just think it's the same thing with players, right? It's like them learning how to manage the relationship with the coach, whether it's the best coach they've ever had or some knucklehead, that's part of being a player that is going to do this for a living. Be curious. Like, I think um, there's I can't remember, and I wish I remember who said this to me, but I think it's so relevant. And it was basically they said, look, like you can count on two hands the amount of players in the world that no matter what happened to them, they were going to end up in the National Hockey League. So you're probably talking like the McDavids, the Crosbys, those types of players. And they said for every other player that makes it to the National Hockey League, there's two other players that were equally as talented that don't make it. And it's not because of their talent. It's probably not because of their work ethic in some cases, but it's probably about how they fit into a team, how they dealt with adversity. Like there's going to be all these things that you don't learn in hockey school that are going to have such a big influence on what your career looks like in the long run.
I'm absolutely convinced by that. All the players I've been working with that has gone a little bit longer way to get there. They all have the mentality, and they are team players. They understand how a team works. They are ready to take the role on that team to make the team better. So I think that's a common thing amongst all the players I've been working with.
When you're working with these players, or maybe when you chat with them, say throughout the season, and so if they're playing professionally, at some point they've probably learned that lesson in terms of it's not going to be easy. They got to embrace hard. But what do they share with you about what they expect or want from their coaches?
It's different.
Yeah,
Some of them have a very clear opinion about what they want and what they expect. Some don't. I mean, when I talk to a guy like Jesper, once again, he's very, very well planned with everything. He's got a very clear picture of what he wants from himself and from the coaches and from me, and so it's very, very different, I would say. Some players just follow; they do what the other guys do, and but the best ones, once again, they have a very, very strict, clear path they want to walk. They know what
yeah.
they want to achieve and how to achieve it.
When you're maybe watching video or watching games on TV of players that you work with, I'm always curious about this because I think depending on what your role is in the game, the lens that you see the game through is different. So when you're watching clients play, what are you looking for in their game?
I would say confidence. How they act. If they just play it safe, or if they play to not make mistakes, or if they have the courage and they have the confidence to do good things. And it doesn't have to be fancy moves and fakes. It can be a solid defense. I mean, a guy like Andreas Englund that played for LA but now in Nashville. He's a strong, solid, very physical guy. When he didn't play well, I saw him holding it back. He played it safe, just to make no mistakes. But then his confidence grew. He had a great position on the team, and then he started to act. And I could see all these skills he had in the summertime. I could see it in the games. So I
Yeah.
think I look for the confidence. And when I'm writing to Jesper, hey, what's going on here? I've seen the last 3 games and nothing happens. You're just skating around. You don't do anything. That's very much based on the confidence, I would say, the self confidence.
In a world where a lot of the coaches listening to this, even in lower levels, I mean, they get access to so much data and analytics. Could we make an argument that if you could keep track of one thing, it would just be like, just as a coach, just get yourself to a point where all 20 players on your roster are going out and playing with confidence. Like if you can do that, like all the analytics will take care of themselves.
Yeah, sure. And I think it's impossible to end up there because you will never have 20 players with super confidence. But I think that's my role as a coach, to try to guide them there, try to help them, because many times I think the answers is within the player. Um, I talk a lot about challenge yourself, push your limits. Don't be afraid to fail in practice, or you have to have that drive to challenge yourself. And you need a coach, of course. You need a surrounding to give you that opportunity to end up in context like that.
And I sort of liken like if for anybody that has kids, like having a good relationship with your child's teacher can really help reinforce things that happen at home or just sort of their overall behavior. How many coaches of your players or perhaps other people within the organization communicate with you just to sort of maybe, and it could be to look for cues on how they relate to a player or work with a player, or just to get some overall feedback on where a player is at and what might allow them to play with confidence?
Not that many, I would say, because I'm the external black
Got it.
sheep. They see me as a threat many times. I think it's a lot of prestige in this because many coaches think they can manage this by themselves within the team and within the club. So their player are coming to me, they see this as a. I wouldn't say everyone is super positive about it. So
You know what's, oh, man, you know what's so interesting about that is that I think there was a time in our game where, the goalie coaches
yeah,
where like they were on the other side of the wall. And then at
yeah,
some point in the
exactly,
history of the game, one head coach said, you know what, let's invite the goalie coach in the room and maybe that'll help the goalie play better. If we're communicating, that'll help. And then I think at some point somebody said, hey, let's go get the strength coach on the other side. Let's bring them in
exactly,
the
exactly.
conversation.
Yeah,
And turns out that helped a lot. And I feel like maybe the next evolution is to bring in the skill or development coaches and
yeah,
involve them in the conversation. And whichever coach does that will probably get a
yeah.
immediate edge.
Yeah, I usually say that in my presentation when I have a presentation for the coaches. I say we are 20 years behind the off ice part because 20 years ago we had the exact same discussion in the off ice practice. Some coaches they were really this is a good thing, we need this, but most were like yeah, you can. Yeah, exactly. But now the door starts to open for the skill development at professional level, I would say. But still, it's maybe 10% of the team working with this in a good way.
How much has your teaching evolved in say the last 20 years?
I would say my spine and what I really believe in is comes from when I was really really young. When I ended up in a club where they worked a lot on the individual development. So I still have that as my base where I always start from. But I was a team coach for many many years, so I had a much bigger understanding for the game. So for me, it's so important to understand that the skill development must aim for the game. We have to find ways to use the skills in the games. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. So have that connection between how we learn the players to skate and handle the puck and move, and we always have to aim and see the game in front of us. And the players have to understand why they do it, so they know how to use it in the games. So that connection has been more and more obvious for me.
Can you give any examples of maybe, because obviously in the last 20 years, hockey in general has really evolved. I mean, it's so much more faster. I mean, and it goes without saying, I mean, the skill level on players today is mind-boggling. But could you maybe give an example of maybe an evolution or something that you saw change in the game where you thought, okay, I gotta figure out a way to teach that or support players in being able to perform that detail, habit, system, or tactic on the ice?
I would say it was a big difference when I stopped coaching at professional level here in Sweden.
Yeah,
They changed a lot of rules in hockey, and hockey really changed. The way the game looked really changed.
yeah.
Um, it became much more dynamic, much more athletic, much more speed in all the actions. The skills became a bigger part. So I realized for the future, we really need to learn the kids and the younger players and the pro guys as well to learn in a good way with confidence. We need to learn. We have to give them a good base, a solid base, where they always can lean against when it comes to the technique on the ice. So that was a big, big difference. And I would say that was pretty much the same time as I started to coach. I started to work with skill development and youth players again.
So I'm curious, like when you talk about a base, so if we were to survey again most of the coaches listening here and we said, what are the fundamentals of the game? Most or a lot of coaches probably answer it's shooting, passing, skating. When you talk about a base, what are you referring to?
I would say it's the posture. That's where it all starts from in everything we do on the ice. And for me, the posture is how you can control your upper body, how you can stay low in a strong position, where you find your balance, where you find your glide. And once you do that, it's easier to act in a composed and relaxed way out on the ice. When you don't have the balance, when you don't feel confident with your posture, then you're gonna overwork in situations. You're gonna push too hard, and you're gonna work too intense in situations. For me, having players like Kucherov or Makar or Rasmus Dahlin or Jesper Bratt as role models to
Yeah.
to show the young kids how effortless they move, how relaxed they move. I think all hockey players want to be able to act like that. So for me, that's the base, to find a posture that you feel confident with, that gives you balance, that gives you control, give you the ability to have flow in your skating and your actions.
You use the word posture more than any coach, I can think of. And I sort of liken it like if we were to go watch I bet like a gymnastics training session. I bet you they say the word posture a lot. Like I bet you they talk about it a lot. Enough that like if there was a chiropractic degree hanging on the wall in your background, like that would make a lot of sense to me of where this comes from. But when you look back at your own career, when did it become obvious to you that all these things that we're teaching, they all kind of boil down to posture? If we don't have posture, none of this stuff is possible.
No, I don't know if I had that moment. It's more
There
something
was
that
no lightning that came down from the sky and just became
no.
obvious. No, okay,
Once again, back to when I started coaching here in a really really good club here in Stockholm in Sweden. Um, we put a lot of focus on the individual part when it came to technique, but also the off ice. So I saw the connection between what we did off ice and and what we wanted to teach the kids on the ice. So that connection gave me I was really humble in front of the fact that these parts are connected. And if we want to be able to move in a good way with good control, good speed, and everything, we need to have a good posture. And that comes from the off ice. You need to be strong enough, for sure. And I see that even today when I meet different off ice coaches and they work in angles. I don't want to have the players in those angles on the ice. So then I have a discussion with them. And why are you like leaning over that much with the upper body in that drill? Can't you keep keep the chest up? So it's more similar to what we try to achieve on the ice. So I think that connection is super, super important. And I think that's where my conclusion came from. I saw the connection between the off ice and the on ice practice.
man, that's so interesting. Like this is about the time of the calendar year where I stop, or I don't stop. I start watching a lot of videos on YouTube on how to get good at golf.
Yeah.
And part of that is how you train off the range, like in the gym. And just that's immediately where my mind went. I'm like, makes so much sense. Because if you go and look up, you know, workouts to become better at golf, it's all rooted, like all the exercises are rooted in how you physically stand or show up in swinging a golf club. And so a lot of logic there. Let me ask you this then. When was the first time smooth power or the word smooth power came out of your mouth? When did that
I
become
think
a thing?
it's yeah, I think it's like 4 or 5 years ago. I've had my own company now for 6 years,
Yeah.
uh, and for a start, I all hockey players in the world they want to become faster. They want to be able to skate faster, and they want to be powerful in all their actions. But I also see a lot of this go 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 go. It's only going for speed and going straight ahead. But for me, when I'm looking at the best players, doesn't matter if it's a D or a forward or old or young or whatever, I see the smoothness in all the actions. I see the flow. And I would say it's the same thing if I look at boxing or a runner or a tennis player or whatever. They look so relaxed and so smooth, but I know their actions are extremely powerful. There are a boxer is he's like extremely strong, but still he looks so relaxed and composed in his actions. So that's when I started to work more and more with the skill development. This was something I saw too many young kids, even older guys as well, but mainly smaller kids. They push too hard. They use too much strength. They were too stressed in their actions. So I wanted to give them this relaxed, smooth flow feeling in their actions.
Last night, I was at the Canucks game. They were playing Utah. I know that I'm having this conversation. I got smooth power in the back of my brain, and I'm watching the game, and I'm like, okay, Quinn Hughes, he's got smooth power, and I'm like, yeah, Clayton Keller, he's got smooth power. Logan Cooley, never seen him play live before. Whoa, is that kid going to be dynamite in a couple years? The other kid, close to home for you is, and you're going to have to help me out with the last name here. Rookie for the Canucks. He just got called up again. Jonathan Lakaramaki.
Yeah, that's a Finnish name actually, so it's
Is
hard
it
for me
really?
to say it.
Oh, is it?
It's hard for
Okay.
me,
Well, okay. I feel
but
better
he's
now.
Swedish. He's Swedish.
He's got some
Let,
smooth power, that kid, too. When
yeah,
you
yeah.
give him some time. My question would be how much of, when we look at players like that even amongst the 1% stand out, um, how much of that is just talent or DNA, and how much of that can be taught if we get in front of players at the right stage of their career?
I would say most of it is practice. I would say most of it is hours because young kids spending a lot of hours on the ice, they find their ways. And we had a discussion yesterday actually, because many times we put a lot of focus on high intense practice, high intense drills. But I also remember from back in the days when I started working with youth development that we had so many hours on the ice and we didn't expect them to be up high when it came to intensity, more putting a lot of focus on the way they play the game and moves and stuff. So the intensity was a little bit lower, but the technique became so much more smooth and relaxed. And so I think this focus on all the speed and the intensity, it's hard to find that smoothness within that
Yeah.
context. So I think to give them space to, you don't need to stress, you don't need to go full speed. Just find a good feeling, find the balance, find the moves. And that's, I'm telling the players today when I'm on ice with youth players and with pro guys, I totally understand this sounds very, very strange, but one of the things I say the most on my practice is take it easy, slow down. Because I want them to find this. I want them to become fast, of course. I want them to be able to act with speed, of course. But the way there goes for me through taking it slow, take it step by step, get more and more confident with your technique, with your balance, and find the trust in it.
How many times when you're on the ice with a player and you're working on, whatever technique or skill it is, does the player just finish a rep and look at you and say, I did it. Like I felt it. Like the finish line is what like the player just knows. They don't have to look at video. They're just like, I know I got it because of how it
Yeah,
felt.
yeah. That happens a lot,
Yeah.
for sure. And the more you have worked with it, of course, then you feel the difference when it's really good and when it's not good. So when players become like 15, 16, 17, I think they're more aware of what's going on and finding that right feeling. And especially with the pro guys, I can see it in their eyes when they know they nail the action, and they find this feeling of flow. I think flow is what that's the central word I strive for in everything I do. Because once you feel the flow, that's a very nice feeling.
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting. Do you know who Steven Kotler is?
No,
He's I just really fortunate got introduced to him. And Steven Kotler, he's an author, and we're hopefully going to get him on the podcast. But he's kind of like the godfather of flow, and his background was back in the early '90s. He was writing for like Outdoor Magazine and sort of media outlets that were covering extreme sports. And with a lot of these extreme sports, these athletes didn't grow up with coaches or in team environments. Like something in their past led them to just like a skateboarder doesn't go to skateboarding school. They just sort of figure it out. They watch, they learn. And what he observed is when he would talk to these athletes, they'd be like, "Okay, you're climbing, you're rock climbing, or you're paragliding, or you're doing these extreme things. Like, what's going through your mind?" And they would all in their own way describe that. Oh, I just get in the zone, or I get in the thing. And through these conversations, one day started talking about flow, and recognized that was sort of the connection between all these athletes. They at some point they all were able to tap into this flow, and so he now runs the Flow Research Institute out in California. And I'll send you some information on it. It's fascinating.
no.
But one of the things that he talked about was, you know, he's done studies on team athletes where if he gets like a team of football players to go run out in the woods or to do something where there's no coach talking to them, like they just go out and do something that's natural to them, that'll just translate into helping them find the flow and that thing where they need to be, maybe
Yeah.
more exact with. And it's yeah. So I guess my question would be like when you're coaching players, how much of what you do is just creating an environment where they can sort of feel it and figure it out on their own without you just being in their ear, for the full 60-minute session and telling them what to do.
Yeah, I think that's super important. I'm giving them the frames. I'm giving them some kind of something to lean against. They know what we're aiming for, but within that frame, I want them to try. I want them to feel safe about failing, or once again challenge themselves. And I think it's hard for me to be objective now. I work with skill development. I totally understand team coaches are like, he's saying this because he works with it, of course. But for me, I think this is one of the main thing when it comes to youth development, when it comes to youth players, because I meet so many coaches that put so much effort into their team, how to make the team play really good and win hockey games. For me,
Yeah.
that's of course important. If I'm on the bench, I want to win the game. But for me, it's so important that the players find their path, that they have this, uh, they are curious to find new ways, find their own way, um, and become more and more confident with their own skill set, with their own drive and meaningfulness. So I would say that's my main task as a coach, is to help them, support them, guide them
Yeah.
to this path. Because
Well,
I can't force anyone to go there. They
yeah,
have to open that door themselves. I can be there to help them open the door, but
sure.
they have to step in themselves.
And I think like I think that's what's so valuable about, coaches like yourself. Like I think so much, and I think, if we're being honest, like it probably a lot of it comes with parents where it's transactional, but I would say that, for as long as I've been around the game, that as you said, players are going to get lots of different coaches through their careers. But when you look at players that have a lot of success that a lot of the times, and it's just, I would say it's generally through luck, is that at some point in their formative years when they're younger, they meet a coach like yourself who they develop a personal relationship with, they develop trust, and they're with that coach long enough that the coach can call them on their bullshit, where the coach can maybe give them a friendly little nudge and bring them back to some of the things they do well. The coach can sort of steer them towards their strength, where maybe a player wants to be play a certain way, but that coach can be like, actually, you maybe fit better here. And that personal relationship over a long period of time can just make, I think, such a difference
Yeah,
in a player's career. Where and I think that's important, because I think so often now, again, I don't want to throw parents under the bus, but it's like, I'm going to send my kid to this hockey school and this coach and this coach, and I'm like, man, if you can find one that is just your kid connects with,
yeah,
like, lean into that.
yeah. And it's so much stress in that process as well. And
Yeah,
for me, it's so important that the kids and the players find their own desire, that they find their own joy with everything we do here. And if
yeah,
it's too much focus on the right coach, the right team, winning the right tournaments, being in the right context, I think that takes away a lot of the joy and the desire for the kids. And I see that once again as my main task is to help them find that feeling of meaningfulness in everything they do. So if I meet a 10-year-old that is really, really insecure, I try to make him more and more secure, small steps, step by step. If I meet a very, very early developed 14, 15-year-old, I try to challenge him or her from her or his perspective from where they start. So that's my main task, I think, as a coach.
I'll tell you what, Daniel. Like, it's easy to look at what you do, and if anybody that, for example, follows you online, and you can tell pretty quickly that you work with some really high end players. But I'm curious. Like, this is what I've learned in the last couple of years, having to work with my son's team and little kids, is that um, hockey is like dinosaurs. Kids fall in love with dinosaurs, and it's dinosaurs that introduce them to books and to reading and to learning and to doing their own research and exploring and curiosity and all these great things. And I think that hockey is the same way, that it's not about earning a paycheck one day. Like, hockey is going to be this gateway to so many great things, from how to work with other people, to being confident, to being yourself within a team environment. And sometimes we miss that. But like, I love what you said about helping players discover their confidence in the course of your career. How much have you seen kids that, because of their experience gaining confidence through hockey, overcoming adversity, how that's maybe translated into a life that doesn't include playing the game?
That's the biggest, what's the word for it? The most important thing about sport and team sports, especially, is
Yeah,
that you get tools for the rest of your life.
yeah,
A very, very, very few become professional, or maybe even a coach, as myself. But most players become something totally different. But if we do this in a good way, and I think hockey mostly are, you get tools for the rest of your life. You are being able to work in a group. You know how to cooperate with other people. You know how to go for a common goal, or um, get the weakest link, become a member of the team, and all of that. And that's something I think sport really can help young people, to give young people, because in today's society, many young kids, they sit almost alone in front of the screen, and they never learn how to become good at these skills. So I think sport is unbeatable when it comes to these kind of things.
No, man, I totally agree with you. And I think that, for exactly the reasons you just laid out, like, more than ever, sports is so important to to just the health of our communities and young
Yeah.
folks, and how they get along. Um, so I want to chat about the course that you did with us at the coach's site,
Yeah,
but specifically, like one, it's awesome, but two, when I watch it and I put myself in the shoes of a young player, I'm like, if I went on the ice with you right now, Daniel, my biggest concern would be that I'm going to snap my ankle, and I could just see where, I mean, you do an amazing job of I don't know how you do it, but you seem to get players comfortable with getting well outside their comfort zone and doing things that um you know are maybe past the edge of what they might even do in a game at a high
yeah,
level.
yeah,
How do you get players comfortable with doing things that again, we look at the course and we see all the players doing it really well, but I've got to think that, and a lot of times when you're on the ice with players, it's players falling down, it's struggling. How do you work with them in that environment?
yeah. First of all, I have to say, I mean, it's step by step, of course. These
Yeah,
guys that I have in the course, they have been with me over many, many years. So
for sure.
they feel confident with my methods, with my drills.
Yeah,
But at the same time, I would say uh, when I start with, as yesterday's practice we had, I had a clinic for 3 hours yesterday night, and I had some players been on the ice with me 400 times, and I had three guys coming for the first time. And of course, the guys that's been on the ice with me 400 times, they are very, very confident with what we do on the ice. But the three other guys, they were, of course, insecure. But I told them, slow down, find your own pace. If that doesn't feel good, skip it. You don't have to compare yourself to the other guys. Be inspired by them, but you don't need to compare you. So that's the kind of discussion I have with if there's a new guy coming to my practice. And the same thing with the course. For me, it's no secrets. It's no rocket science. It's more create an understanding of taking the small steps. You have to start with the base, and from there take small steps and add new things, new challenging parts of skating and moves. Um, and the key thing, the secret, or what we should
yeah.
call it, is that you need to spend a lot of time with this kind of stuff. And so the guys I've been on ice with 400 times, of course, they feel extremely confident with this. Um, but they are also a very good proof that you need to spend the hours. You need to spend e- do these kind of things every week, every month, year after year. I'm pretty sure a guy like Sidney Crosby is still working on the things he did when he was 15 because he understands this is something he have to keep fresh. He have to work on these kind of things, even though it's 37, 38 years old today. Um, so I think that's the main thing about the course is to get an understanding about the small steps, but also that you have to be there and repeat them all the time.
I think that's so important. It's interesting you bring up Crosby. And again, I may have shared this story before, but I think it's worth repeating for anybody that hasn't heard it. It was chatting with Tony Granato, who, played in the NHL, was a head coach, but was an assistant in Pittsburgh, and shared this story that, like, after every practice, Sydney would pick a spot on the ice, and he would get like Tony to go to, like, one corner and pass some pucks, and he would pick one. So he'd pick a spot on the ice, but then he'd pick a location on the net, and he'd get passes from one spot, and he'd try and hit it as many times. And then he'd say, okay, go to the other corner and pass me pucks from there. So he'd stand in the same spot, hit the same target, but the puck's coming from, and he would just do this. And then the next day or next practice, he'd pick a different location on the ice, different spot in the net, with the goal of saying, no matter where I am, wherever I get the puck, I can put it anywhere I want. But this was like a compounding effect of years and years and
Yeah.
years.
Mm.
When you talk about teaching and that you have to do it again and again, and I know that we don't have like a metric that we can measure, But one of my biggest fears of the coaches side is we give coaches so much information that they feel like they've got to squeeze everything into a season. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Like you want to focus on two or three things. When you look at, if we use the course as an example, is that something that um, you put a player through over the course of a week, a season, or is it multiple seasons to try and acquire those techniques?
That's a very good question because some players I only meet like once a month. Some players I meet 3 times a
Yeah.
week. But I'm trying to get both younger guys and even pro guys to get them aware this is something you have to do like almost every week, I would say. And then I talk about the most fundamental stuff, the base, once back to the posture and the balance and the glide and those kind of stuff. Uh, but you don't have to do it for 50 minutes or 1.5 hours. You can do it for 3 minutes. And the next day you do it for 7 minutes. And just to remind the body. Then, of course, during a period of time, you need to develop. It's one thing to be aware of what you need, but then you also have to make it like a automatic thing. You have to put in all the hours to really become confident with your balance or your crossover or whatever. And if you look at the pro guys, that's what we do in the summertime. But then during the season, they need to keep it fresh by adding small 2 minutes, 7 minutes, 50 minutes during the season. For kids, it's much, much easier, of course. I have groups every weekend they sign up for, and I meet these guys at least once a week during the
Yeah.
whole season. And of course, then it's easy to have a progress. I
Yeah.
can start with the posture. We work with posture for like 1 or 2, 3 weeks, and then we step into inside edge, and we work with that for 2, 3 weeks, and so on. Pretty much as I built the course. It's 7 steps, but we don't go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. It's more like 1 to 2, back to 1, up to 3, back and forth. Once again, to remind the body, this is what you need. You need to be, the upper body is super crucial. We have to go back there almost every practice to remind the body up with the upper body and so on.
I think I love that you shared that, and I think just that that reminders that you talk about, like remind the body, because I think sometimes with players and and sometimes I think with parents too, is that when you go back to one, they're like, whoa, 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 like we did that, and like we don't need to do that again. Like there's this expectation that learning is just this like linear thing that's always up and to the right, and I think that's just great advice that you have to go back, and that, as you said, it's like I think we can all think of examples, and like if you haven't driven a car for a while, you got to remind your body, like the
Yeah,
mechanics,
sure.
like we're all
Yeah.
unconsciously going through this. But
And I have a story there. I
yeah, I
worked
want to
with
hear that.
Johnny Odoya for many, many years. He played for
Yes, yeah,
New Jersey and Chicago, and he had a really weak season in New Jersey, like his second or third year. And we talked about after the season, he said, I lost my confidence in my outside edge. I didn't trust my outside edge. And for me, he was an extremely good skater, a very athletic, very strong, powerful skater. And for me, that was his least concern. But he started to doubt his outside edge. So from that season and throughout his whole career, we put a lot of focus on the basic stuff. He said, no fancy stuff. I want to go back to the basic stuff.
no
Just
way.
find the confidence in the outside edge, in my balance, in my posture. So that's where we put like 90% of all the practice time on, just to find, yeah, the base. And from there, he could play his game with confidence, feeling that he could control his skating and his balance. So even though he was a super good skater at the top level, he wanted to go back to the base. So for me, we were on step 1 and 2 almost all the time.
Man, and I would think like the game's so fast now. It's probably like if you're like an F1 driver, like if you don't have full confidence in your brakes or the mechanics of your car, like you're just gonna slow yourself down a little bit. It reminds me, man. Like, do you follow like American football at all?
No, not really. No.
Well, so our director of content, Derek Jory, who you've met,
Yeah, yeah.
and so Derek does a little bit of freelance work for NFL Canada. And so earlier this season, the Seattle Seahawks, so Seattle's just south of us here in Vancouver, they host a Canada game. I don't know if they're going to do that anymore with all the shit going on in the world, but they used to host the Canada game, and so Derek, we he invites us and a bunch of our staff. We got to go down and hold the flag for the Canadian national anthem on the field in an NFL stadium, and there's the planes are flying overhead. It was incredible. But one of the things that we got to do is we got to watch warm up at field level. And so warm up in football is different. It's probably like, I don't know, if I was guessing, it's like 30 to 40 minutes because there's so many players. There's two teams, but then they need to create space for like the guys to kick the ball and run the route. So it's interesting how this whole dance works. But the thing I remember, so we watched them play the Buffalo Bills, and the quarterback for the Buffalo Bills is a guy named Josh Allen. Josh Allen is a mutant of a human being. Like he's like 6'5", 240 pounds, and he can throw the ball like 100 miles an hour. And so we watched. So of course, I'm watching. Like I want to see Josh Allen warm up and throw the ball 100 miles an hour all the way down the field. Well, Josh Allen gets out on the field, and he's just doing like little 5-yard throws with one of the coaches, and he's slow, going through the mechanics, all the follow through, and then he steps back a little bit further, throws it again, and then he throws it and he drops back a little bit, then he throws it, and you watch him go from like probably the throws that he made when he first picked up a football to like 30 minutes later, he's literally dropping back and snapping his wrist, and the ball is going 100 miles an hour all the way down the
Yeah.
field. But it was just a good, when you talk about remind the body and you talk about feel, that the clearly the best athletes in the world have figured that part out. Like they're proof, right?
Yeah. And I have to say, when I started this, it felt strange to tell the players to take it easy, slow down. But
Yeah, I
now I'm
bet.
so confident in that. So if I see a player go like, why should I go slow? I'm so confident that this is the right way to do it, because I see so many guys, they don't give themselves time enough to execute the technique in a good way. So they're never going to develop the technique because they rush too hard, they stress too much. So for me, I'm never going to feel insecure when I say take it slow, take it easy, find a good feeling, because that's what it's all about. That's where the confidence come from.
Yeah. No, that's great advice, man. Um, back to the course. So I'm not inside your head. I don't know how much knowledge about hockey you have floating around in there. But when I first saw the course before it was released, I was like, holy shit, like Daniel might have given us everything. Like, I don't know. Like it is so detailed, and there's this incredible buildup to these really complex skills. And my first reaction was like, what in a world where I know that, I mean, effectively it's your IP, right? And the instinct I think for a lot of coaches is you don't share, right? Because the more it stays with you, the more valuable theoretically you are as a coach. What gave you the confidence to say, hey, like I'm cool with sharing this with the world, and whether it makes a coach better, a player better, like that's okay. But I'm gonna open up, the book, so to speak, and let people have access to it.
As I said before, I don't see any secrets here, because I think the secret is the hours. If you have
Yeah.
the motivation, if you have the drive, if you have the determination to become really good, and you're willing to do the job, then that's the key thing. Then there are many ways to become extremely good at hockey. I have found my way. I have found my package that I believe in, and I don't see any secrets whatsoever. I get calls from coaches that want to come and join my practices, and I say, of course, you're more than welcome. My door, it's always open, my door. Um, so I think the key thing is to find motivation and find that drive and the lust, and that's the main thing. The drills are, you can find it almost everywhere, and you can go so many different paths. For me, the main thing about the course was to get an awareness for the step-by-step process, that you have to start with this to be able to go to that step,
Yeah.
and from there to next step. So I would say create an awareness was my main thing about it. The drills could have looked different, maybe. This is some
Yeah.
main drills I use a lot, but it could have looked different. But I think the step to step was the main thing.
So, I mean, we've had so much positive feedback on the course. And I mean, I've heard from coaches that, volunteer to coach their kids. I've heard from NHL coaches on it that purchased it. And they're like, I learned so much from it. And for us, it was cool because we've never done that before. And it was just so great to work with you, just in the same way you build a player, right? Like we learned so much through that process, and it felt so great to see it come into the world and come to life. Have you received any feedback from coaches like reaching out to you online or at the rink on who
Yeah, for
purchased it?
sure. Pretty much the same kind of feedback. I think getting an awareness of what skills really is. Many times you see all this fancy circus stuff going on, and you see that as skills. For me, this is skills. Skills are very close connected to the expression confidence. I think this kind of methods, this kind of drills creates confidence, and that's pretty much the feedback I get from coaches and from players, that they get a greater awareness, a greater understanding of how to work with skills and why you should work with skill. Why is it important to do these kind of things? Because when you see Connor McDavid at full speed, you want to do the same thing, but what's behind it? It's a lot of basic stuff going on, getting that confidence with your own skill set.
Totally. Um, so Daniel, if you put out your phone right now and you looked at like our text thread over the years, and you're a super busy guy, so right around uh, January every year, and I went back and looked, like I think it's for like the last 4 years. I send you a text that says, "Hey Daniel, do you want to come present at our conference this year?" And I get a really polite. Swedish folks are so polite, by the way. And it's like, hey, I'm really busy this year. I've got a camp. I'm flying here. I'm doing this. And it's never worked out. But this year, finally, you're coming to Ann Arbor to present at TCS Live. And I mean, listen, we've been so blessed and fortunate that we've had some incredibly accomplished folks come in and take part in our event. I don't think we've ever had somebody where there was that much excitement from our community for people to kind of watch do their thing in person. Can you give us any sort of a sneak peek um, in terms of what you're going to be talking about?
First of all, I'm more excited than anyone about this. I'm pretty sure. I'm also very nervous because I really want to deliver something good for everyone. And I think the awareness of skills, that's the main thing. I want to find a good package to deliver to all the people coming there. Because I want to present my thoughts about skill development. I want to present my thoughts about smooth power, how important it is. I want to present also how I see the connection between skill development and developing the game, how to use it in the games, how we can get that understanding of skills going into the game. So I'm working on that presentation right now, and it fills my day.
Awesome. Well, listen, man, we're stoked. I see the picture of Boris Salming in the background, and I think that good players, and I don't know if you've seen like The Last Dance, the
Yeah,
documentary
yeah, yeah.
on,
It's a great one.
and like you see kind of in real time Michael Jordan, and maybe some people wouldn't agree with his methods, but he found a way to get himself motivated um, every game to be at his best. And I think good players all kind of, I think that's a uniqueness to all of us as athletes, as humans, that learning what gets you to show up at your best. But I'd be curious, like, who are the players that inspire you, whether that's maybe for your next lesson or maybe it's outside of hockey? What motivates you or sparks your curiosity as someone that would appear to continuously be motivated to bring the best out of people?
That's a big question.
That's a big question.
I would say, as a young coach, I had the fortunate to be around very experienced coaches here in
Yeah,
Sweden, also leaders outside hockey, and they gave me so many insights about leadership, about drive, about being professional. So that was something that became a very motivating situation for a younger me. And I read a lot about Philly Jackson, talking about Last Dance. Philly Jackson was a huge inspiration for me. I read all his books. I looked at all
yeah,
the documentaries, and I was really inspired by him. But now today, when I'm getting really old here, and I've had many years in this business, I would say I get so inspired by the players. Even if they're 12, 13 years old, coming to me with enormous amount of motivation and dreams, and that motivates me and keeps me curious. I want to know more. I want to learn the new generation. I want to know what motivates them and what give them drive in their everyday life. And of course, the pro guys. When I meet Jesper after a season, I get so many stories. I get so many new insights about life in professional hockey, and I have other players as well. So of course, that give me new thoughts, new ideas, new insights, and also new motivation, I would say. So as long as I have this drive, as long as I feel so curious about the future, I can see no stop for me.
that's well said. Also, you got a lot of runway left, Daniel, because if you don't have a lot of runway, that means I don't have a lot of runway. So we got lots of time left to keep staying curious and improving our craft. Listen, man, this has been a lot of fun, and I mean it when I say we feel so fortunate and honored to get to work with you. It's been a great learning experience, and appreciate you trusting us and helping us bring your life's work and presenting that to the hockey community.
Same. I'm very, very happy to have this opportunity.